I came home expecting silence, but what I got was a room full of smirks, and my father's voice declared, "She gets nothing." Rain tapped like accusation on the tall windows of the Bennett estate, echoing through the marble halls. The dining room looked almost exactly as I remembered it. High ceilings, too many chandeliers, and oil paintings of ancestors who had all looked just as disapproving in life as they did in death. The air was thick, not from the storm outside, but from the tension seated at the long oak table. I hadn't stepped foot in this house in 6 years. The last time I left, I carried a single suitcase and a folded letter from my mother, tucked deep in the lining of my coat. It hadn't been dramatic. No shouting, no slammed doors. Just a quiet goodbye, a car ride to the airport, and the certainty that no one would chase me. They didn't. My father didn't even glance up from his newspaper. Now he sat at the head of the table again, older but no less iron-spined. His silver hair was meticulously combed, his cufflinks glinting like medals of control. To his right, my younger brother Ethan leaned back in his chair with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no. He wore a subtle smirk, fingers steepled, like this was just another business acquisition. I slid into the empty seat across from them. No one rose to greet me. My arrival had been noted, like the weather. Unpleasant, but not unexpected. A few cousins exchanged polite nods. My aunt poured herself more wine. No one asked how I'd been. No one mentioned the funeral. "Thank you all for coming," my father said, dabbing at the corner of his mouth with a cloth napkin as if we were here for Sunday brunch. "I thought it best we proceed with the will now, while the family is gathered." My stomach twisted. This wasn't standard procedure. Wills are read privately, legally, with counsel present. This was a performance. Mr. Whitman, seated silently near the corner, said nothing yet. His briefcase rested at his feet, hands folded across it like a barrier. Charles turned his gaze to me, cold and amused. "Olivia?" he said, the syllables landing like a gavel. "You've returned. A surprise, I'll admit." I offered no response. "You left, didn't you? What was it again?" He turned to the room as if inviting an answer. "Ah, yes. Some underfunded women's clinic overseas. Noble, I'm sure." A few chuckles. My jaw tightened. "You didn't call when your mother got sick," he added. "Didn't come home. And now you expect to be part of this family's legacy?" Still, I didn't respond. His smirk deepened. "She gets nothing." The words echoed, not shouted, just stated. With such finality, it stunned the air still. "She made her choice," he went on, pushing a thick white envelope across the table toward Ethan. "This is for the son who stayed, the son who understood loyalty." Ethan didn't touch the envelope yet. He didn't need to. His face already said everything. Calm, assured. This had been decided long before tonight. No one looked at me. I kept my hands in my lap. They trembled slightly, but no one could see beneath the tablecloth. I imagined the room without me in it, like I had never existed. It wasn't difficult. They'd done that for years. Mr. Whitman cleared his throat. A small sound, but it cut through the silence like a blade. "Before you proceed," he said, straightening slightly, "there is an addendum to the will, one your mother filed privately. It was to be read only if Charles attempted to disinherit her," the lawyer said. "And now, it activates." A tremor passed through the room. Not loud, not even audible. But I felt it, like a current underneath the polished hardwood floor. For a moment, no one breathed. Mr. Whitman's words hung in the air like smoke from a fire no one could see, but everyone suddenly smelled. Charles shifted in his seat. I saw the flicker of confusion in his eyes, quickly replaced by something colder. Calculation. Ethan leaned forward slightly, lips parting, eyes darting to the envelope he hadn't yet opened. The room, once filled with smirks and wine glasses, now felt like a courtroom. Mr. Whitman reached into his briefcase and pulled out a smaller envelope, aged, yellowed slightly at the edges. sealed with a red wax crest I hadn't seen in years. The symbol of Bennett Holdings, pressed deep by the signet ring my mother used to wear. He broke the seal cleanly and unfolded the page. This amendment was written and filed with the notary on March 17, 2023. He began. Signed by Margaret Bennett in full legal capacity and witnessed accordingly. My fingers curled around the chair's edge. I remembered the letter she wrote me the day I left, tucked into my bag with no ceremony, no demand. Just a sentence. The day they try to erase you, you will rise. Mr. Whitman's voice was steady. Margaret retained full ownership of her 51% stake in Bennett Holdings until her passing. That share was never transferred nor co-managed. In this amendment, she stipulated the following condition. Should Charles Bennett, her husband, ever attempt to disinherit Olivia Bennett, her daughter, then full ownership, voting rights, and controlling interest of Margaret's share are to be transferred to Olivia Bennett. The air snapped like a whip. Charles leaned forward. That's absurd. It's legal, Whitman replied, voice clipped. This amendment has been registered and validated. It overrides any internal family arrangements not filed through legal channels. That's not how we do things in this family, Charles hissed. With respect, sir, the lawyer said, turning to face him squarely. That's exactly the point. This wasn't meant to be handled as a family matter. It was prepared as a legal one. Ethan looked stunned now. His hand hovered near the envelope still lying on the table as if touching it would burn him. I caught a glimpse of Rosa through the doorway, her dark eyes watching from the shadows of the corridor before she silently turned and walked away. Mr. Whitman turned to me. There is a second item, left in the event this clause was activated. He reached again into the briefcase and produced a small wooden box, worn but polished. My heart cracked open at the sight of it. I recognized it instantly, my mother's compass. He placed it gently in front of me. Beneath it, a folded letter. My name written in her script. Sharp, graceful, and undeniably hers. My hands trembled as I lifted the letter, unfolding it with care, as if the paper itself might shatter. My dearest Olivia, it began. If you're reading this, then your father has done exactly what I feared. Don't hate him. He is a product of a world that told him control was strength. But you were always more. You never needed to be loud to lead. Just steady. This compass is yours now. Because no matter the path, I trust you to lead. I read the last line aloud, voice steadying as I reached the end. You never needed to be loud to lead, just steady. No one said anything. Even Charles didn't move. I felt their stares, but I didn't return them. I folded the letter slowly, placed it back into the envelope, and set it atop the compass. Then I stood. Then let's get to work. There's a legacy to fix. So you're the CEO now, Ethan said, smiling without warmth. Let's see how long you last. He said it like a joke, but it wasn't. I'd barely stepped into the glass-walled lobby of Bennett Holdings when he greeted me with that perfect smile. Tight-lipped, camera-ready, utterly hollow. His voice echoed in the atrium's high ceilings, surrounded by steel, marble, and the soft buzz of Monday morning tension. I walked past him without a word. Elevator doors slid open, too slow to feel automatic. My reflection in the brushed metal stared back at me. Blazer crisp, posture upright. But the flicker in my eyes betrayed the weight I carried. A legacy I never asked for, and a battlefield I never prepared to fight on. The executive floor was colder than the lobby, both in temperature and in tone. Frosted glass walls, white LED lighting, desks spaced too far apart for comfort. Everything was designed to keep people productive and distant. Julia, the PR manager, greeted me with a nervous smile as I approached my office. Welcome back, Ms. Bennett, if that's what we're calling it. Olivia is fine, I said. She nodded, clutching a tablet against her chest like a shield. There are a few things we should go over. Right away. I followed her in. The office was minimalist, clinical, almost surgical. Wide windows overlooked the city below, but the air inside didn't move. There's something circulating online, Julia said, tapping the screen. Social media mostly, and a few low-tier blogs. She turned the tablet to face me. A headline glared back in bold red. Bennett heiress used shelter funds to pay for private retreats. Beneath it, screenshots of vague spreadsheets, manipulated quotes from obscure interviews, and an edited photo of me leaving a nonprofit fundraiser. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. It's gaining traction, she said, voice low. We think it originated from someone in-house. An IP trace led back to a masked proxy through our internal network. I looked at her. But, she hesitated, but the tech team can't or won't say who. Ethan appeared around the corner at that exact moment, knocking twice before entering. Bad timing? He asked, feigning concern. I heard there's been noise? Coincidence, I'm sure, I said coolly. He stepped inside like he still owned the room. Honestly, Liv, this might be the time to take a breath. A step back. Let things cool. How generous, I said, returning to the tablet, considering I've been CEO for exactly 6 hours. Sometimes things get worse before they get unbearable, he said with that same empty smile. Just looking out for you. He left before I could reply. Not rushed, not smug, just efficient. Surgical, like the office itself. After he was gone, Julia cleared her throat. We'll continue monitoring. Thank you, I said. I'll handle it from here. She left, and for a moment, I was alone. I let my gaze drift over the desk. Nothing personal, nothing of my mother. Just a corporate void pretending to be power. Then I saw it. A sticky note neatly pressed to the corner of the monitor. In blue ink, they used to fire people who sat down. Rosa. I stepped out into the hallway, and there she was, adjusting a vase of fresh-cut lilies in reception. Her hands were steady, but her eyes were sharper than I remembered. You're back, I said. They called me yesterday, she replied. Said there was an opening for a facilities consultant. Her tone was light, almost mocking. Strange timing. You took it? I requested it, she said. Figured someone should be here who doesn't flinch. Later that afternoon, I asked her to help me dig. We reviewed internal logs in a conference room no one used. Access timestamps, archive movement, user IDs that didn't match names. Something stank. And it wasn't old strategy memos. By the end of the day, we had a few notes, nothing definitive, just enough to know we weren't imagining it. I stayed late. Most of the building had emptied. The sound of elevators quieted. I poured stale coffee, sat at my desk, and tried to read through old board minutes. That's when I saw it. A small black USB drive, neatly placed between my keyboard and the monitor. There was no note, no sender, no packaging, just one line, scratched into the plastic casing with something sharp. For when they come for you. I hesitated. Then I plugged it in. Folders loaded instantly. Logs, screenshots, internal emails. A pattern of communications between someone using Ethan's login credentials and a masked proxy server. File names like Press Draft Leak 1 and Olivia Expense Alt 1. And then the last folder. Ethan Projects. I stared at it. The room suddenly felt smaller. I called Rosa. When she picked up, I didn't wait. He forged this. He framed me. You brought war into my house, Ethan said. Now you'll see how we handle traitors. He stood at the head of the boardroom table like he'd been born there. Shoulders square, voice calm, charisma dialed just high enough to pass for authority. The skyline stretched out behind him, glass walls framing the city in cold light. Above us, recessed LEDs buzzed faintly, barely louder than the tension saturating the air. I didn't respond. Rosa's words still echoed in my mind, words whispered as she handed me the USB and touched my arm. Don't flinch. The ones who blink first lose everything. I took my seat slowly, carefully. Let the silence sit. One of the board members, Halpern, cleared his throat. Another scribbled something into a leather-bound notepad. Ethan launched first. As acting CFO and co-chair, I've called this emergency session to address what I believe is a matter of serious concern. A concern regarding mismanagement, no, intentional destabilization, by our new CEO. His voice was velvet-wrapped steel. He gestured toward a printed dossier, already distributed. You'll find summaries of recent PR fallout, financial irregularities tied to Olivia's past affiliations, screenshots, email exchanges, even communications with known whistleblowers who have since been conveniently quiet. He didn't look at me as he spoke. He looked at them. Lined faces, unsure eyes. People who didn't want disruption. They wanted stability. Appearances. Ethan knew that. He was playing to it. I believe for the health of this company and its future, he said, folding his hands. We must take a vote of no confidence. The words landed. No gasps, no outbursts. Just the sound of the board breathing a little too slowly. I reached into my briefcase and withdrew a single black folder. I agree, I said, placing it on the table. Let's vote, but not on me. Ethan finally looked at me. This folder, I said calmly, contains system access logs, email trails, and internal surveillance timestamps from the past 6 weeks, all legally extracted and verified by our own IT team. I opened it, took out the printed screenshots. These are doctored documents, I said, holding up one page. Fake expense reports, fabricated press drafts, all tied to my name. But here, I pointed to the metadata. You'll see the user ID used to edit these files. I clicked the remote in my hand. Behind me, the screen flickered to life. A silent CCV clip began to play. Ethan entering a restricted archive room, alone, after hours, gloved. Frame by frame, he moved toward the central terminal, plugged something in. I turned back to the room. Timestamp matches exactly when the forged documents were created. Network logs confirm access. And this, I held up the USB, is what was left for me by someone who didn't want to watch this company rot from the inside. A ripple moved through the room. Mr. Whitman leaned forward. I can confirm that the materials were reviewed by legal this morning. They meet admissibility standards for internal audit. Ethan's smile faltered. This isn't just about me, I said. This is about protecting what my mother built, what many of you once believed in. I looked at each of them. We're not voting on my failure today. We're voting on Ethan's suspension, pending full investigation. Halpern sat back, eyes narrowed. Another board member whispered to his neighbor. Whitman passed a silent clipboard around. One by one, they signed. 5 names, 2 abstained, none for Ethan. He stood, the chair behind him screeching. This is a setup, he barked. She's playing all of you. She's not ready for this. She never was. No one answered. He looked to Charles's empty seat at the far end of the table, but my father hadn't shown up. I wasn't surprised. Ethan's fists clenched. You think this changes anything? It doesn't. You'll never be one of them. Then he stormed out. Silence settled like dust in his wake. I exhaled slowly. Not from relief, just control. I gathered my folder, turned off the projector, nodded to Whitman, and stepped out into the corridor. My phone buzzed. A message from Rosa. Check the news. He leaked something. You may have the board. Ethan's voice echoed from the news clip. But she has no moral ground to lead. His face filled the screen. Calm, wounded, perfectly rehearsed. The lower third banner read, Suspended CFO speaks out. Behind him, the Bennett Holdings logo flickered like a ghost. His voice was steady, compassionate, a performance polished by years of practice. People forget that power doesn't equal integrity, he continued. Sometimes the quietest ones are hiding the loudest lies. I paused the clip. The apartment was dim. My apartment. The first space I'd bought with money I'd earned. Not inherited, not borrowed. just mine. The walls were plain. A single bookshelf leaned unevenly near the window. My mother's compass sat on the table beside an untouched bowl of soup, the steam long gone. I hadn't left the building in 48 hours. The news cycle hadn't stopped. Headlines stacked themselves like accusations. Bennett CEO under scrutiny. Charity scandal deepens. Legacy or liability. Even the morning shows had opinions now. Then came the segment that broke me. Charles Bennett. My father sat on a primetime panel, arms crossed, voice sharp but measured. I never questioned Ethan's loyalty, he said. He was always the one willing to protect what we built. Olivia, she was always looking elsewhere. Lost in ideals. She's not equipped for this world. She never was. He didn't look angry. He looked disappointed. Somehow that hurt more. I stood in the kitchen, palms pressed to the counter until the marble bit into my skin. I could feel something cracking. Quietly. Invisibly. Not rage. Not despair. Just exhaustion. I didn't cry. Not right away. I just let the silence fill me. Eventually, I moved to the couch, curled into the far end like I had as a girl, hiding from the echo of raised voices upstairs. My mother would sit beside me, whisper stories about constellations and strength and how silence could be armor too. Now the silence just felt heavy. A knock broke it. Software familiar. Rosa stepped inside without waiting. She carried a paper bag and a sealed envelope. Her coat was still damp from the drizzle outside. Soup, she said, placing the bag on the table. Real, not canned. I'm not hungry, I managed. I didn't say it was for you, she replied, but her eyes were kind. She sat beside me. They're getting louder, you know, she said quietly. But not everyone out there is shouting against you. I didn't answer. She reached into her coat and handed me the envelope. My name, again, in my mother's script. What is this? She gave it to me, said to give it to you when you started doubting yourself. I held it for a long moment before breaking the seal. Inside, a flash drive, and a single line written in pen. Only when the silence stops protecting you. I inserted the drive into my laptop. A file opened automatically. No menu, no options. Just my mother's face filling the screen. She looked tired, but strong. Her voice was soft, recorded in a single take. If you're watching this, she began, then they've turned the noise against you, and you're starting to believe it. I leaned forward. They'll test you, she continued, not to see if you'll fail, but to see if you'll become them. Don't. That's the real win. Not holding the title, not the company. The win is staying who you are when no one believes in you, including yourself. She smiled, small and sad. You were never loud, but you were always steady. Keep walking. The screen went dark. I sat there, breath stuck somewhere between grief and clarity. The tears came, not loud, not frantic, just still, cleansing. I wiped my face and stood. The window faced the street below. A small group had gathered. Protesters, press, number people, employees. Some held signs. We believe in Bennett's future. Integrity is leadership. One even had a hand-drawn compass. The tears stopped. I picked up my phone, drafted a message. Subject: Staff Forum to all Bennett Holdings employees. Body: schedule an open staff forum. I have something to say. I came back to be seen, Olivia said, but I stayed to help others be heard. The words echoed gently through the atrium, not amplified by a microphone, not framed by a stage. Just spoken, steady and clear from the center of the floor where chairs were gathered in loose rows. No suits, no power plays. Just people. It had been a week since the headlines had started to fade. Since the protests quieted. Since the damage stopped feeling fresh and started feeling like something I could build over. Not erase. Never erase. But rebuild. I wore the compass around my neck now, the gold warm against my skin, not as ornament but reminder. I touched it once, absently, as I scanned the room. Rosa stood near the back, arms crossed, a subtle smile on her face. Julia nodded from the front row, eyes wide with cautious hope. Scattered through the crowd were old faces, some who'd been let go, some who'd resigned, some who had simply faded into corporate shadows. Now, they were all here again. "I'm not here to explain," I said, "and I'm not here to defend myself. You've all seen enough speeches. What matters now is what comes next." No applause, just listening. "We're restructuring," I continued. "Not just roles and titles. Culture, power, voice, promotions will be merit-based. Leadership will reflect every department. Mental health support will be mandatory, not optional. And we will be launching a leadership accelerator for women inside and outside this building." There was a murmur, not from dissent, but relief. I stepped aside. "But this forum isn't for announcements. It's for you. We're here to listen." One by one, hands began to raise. Questions, ideas, pain long shelved. A woman asked for better parental leave. A man admitted he had hidden burnout for years. A young intern asked if the company would finally take ethical sourcing seriously. I didn't promise change in every case, but I promised we'd be accountable, that we'd begin again. Somewhere in the back row, I noticed movement. Charles. He wasn't dressed for the occasion. No tie, no handlers, just an old gray coat and hands folded too tightly in his lap. Our eyes met for a moment. He didn't nod. He didn't smile. But he didn't look away. Later, after most had gone, I found him in the hallway outside the old boardroom. The door was open, light spilling onto the polished floor like something spilled too late. "I had to see it for myself," he said without turning. "What did you see?" He hesitated. "That you didn't burn it down." I said nothing. He reached into his pocket and held out a photo. Me, maybe 12, covered in paint. My mother behind me, laughing mid-frame, her arm around my shoulder. "She said you'd change this family," he whispered. I just didn't want to believe it. I studied him, unsure if I still wanted to. "I came to say something," he added, voice low. "Something I should have said long ago." He looked up. "I'm sorry, Olivia. For everything." A long silence passed. I could have said it was too late, that the damage was permanent, but healing doesn't start with blame. "Thank you," I said instead. Before he walked away, he added, "I'm trying. In my way." 2 days later, a letter arrived on my desk. Ethan's handwriting. "You win because you never needed to destroy to lead. I wanted to be seen. You helped people feel seen. Maybe that's what Mom meant all along. No apology, but a kind of peace." That afternoon, I walked past the boardroom. No eyes followed me. No whispered doubts. Just quiet acknowledgement. People nodded. They followed. And I led. Later that week, we hosted Family Day at headquarters. A child, wide-eyed, no more than 8, wandered from the snack table to where I stood. She looked up, awe in her face. "Are you the boss?" I knelt, smile tugging at the corners of my mouth, the compass glinting in the light. "Want to know what this does?" In the end, she didn't need to raise her voice, just her standards. The same silence that once buried her became the space where others found their voice. Justice didn't arrive with vengeance, but with clarity, and the quiet conviction that truth, once revealed, cannot be ignored. Like a compass rediscovered in a storm, her legacy pointed not toward revenge, but restoration. Because when courage meets betrayal with grace, even the strongest lie eventually collapses beneath the weight of truth.